Oh, thank God, I am alive. Hyder, Doubloon, are you guys... Am I dead? Hey, wait a minute. That's the weird screen in my mind. Either that or plagiarism's all the rage in heaven these days. Let's see, are there any brainwaves showing me what's going on outside? Guess not. I mean, if I'm coughing in here, I must have landed somewhere. Looks like I'm gonna need to waste some time. Dude, come on. You're not a ghost too, right? Oh, thank God. You know, I'm down to jump back into Kirby. Let's do it. Last we left off in 1993, Kirby had just hit home consoles, and despite the late release on the platform, Adventure was a hit critically, and none too shabby commercially, what with 1.75 million sales on the NES. Those are numbers you can build on easily, especially if you strike fast on what would be more current hardware for consumers in the mid-90s. This brings us to 1995, where with the Super Nintendo game being a realistic possibility in a HAL laboratory that wasn't about to collapse under the weight of bankruptcy, we got another Game Boy game, alright. Okay, to be fair, Dreamland 2 wasn't the only project for Kirby that had come out. At this time, the series was in the early stages of being spread like measles across the Nintendo landscape, and goddammit, everyone was lining up to get a rash. In the near 2 years between Adventure and Dreamland 2's releases, there were 3 different spin-off titles released: Kirby Pinball Land, Dream Course, and Avalanche. And hell, those last 2 were Super Nintendo games, it's just that they were golf in that one version of Puyo Puyo that, depending on what console you owned, was either draped over by a pink fat ass or a pink fat ass with a retinal disease. You'll have to excuse me for glossing over these for now. Maybe one day we can come back and do a grab bag of Kirby spin-offs, God knows there's a ton of them. But I'm on the hunt for a platformer today, goddammit. And well, there is a Super Nintendo one on the way, and it's being directed by Masahiro Sakurai. We're in sight of the Golden Goose, but because I'm a moron, I seem to have followed the trails of a wild one. While Sakurai and his team were chipping away at his project, HAL saw fit to return to the Game Boy with another mainline title, Dreamland 2. This also meant our first main project to be overseen by someone besides the creator, so say hello to Shinichi Shimomura, a guy who, as we'll go on to see, seemed to actually be a brilliant director until he one day, for real, no joke, disappeared from the industry after doing one last Kirby title in 2002, and nobody has any idea what happened to him. I was gonna make some lame-wad joke about, bah, who does this guy think he is, directing Sakurai series, but actually instead I'm just gonna ask, what the fuck? And speaking of missing information, there's honestly not a lot that I was able to find about this game's development in general. Doesn't help when the director just took off into the night, so you can't really ask him how it went, but on the whole, the best I can say is that they made it. I took a minute to cross-reference the developers on the first 2 games in Dreamland 2, just to see if Shimomura maybe got some familiar faces for the ride, seeing as he went from map designer to director. And it was actually kind of shocked to see that there's not a lot of overlap here. They threw this man in by the ankles for his first ever directorial debut, which seems kind of harsh to me, but at the same time, he was following up on Dreamland, and I don't care what you think about that game, it's 20 minutes long. The bar to clear here is an interesting half hour, and you could reasonably get away with saying the game is twice the journey of the original. Does it meet such lofty ambitions? Well, before that, let me clear something up. We're not quite looking at the original Game Boy version today. You might be a bit confused by that statement, given the game doesn't have a Game Boy Color re-release or a remake of any kind, but I mean, we are in my mind right now. I think we can cheat a little. For this video, I'll mainly be using footage from the incredible fan hack of the game, Kirby's Dreamland 2 DX. I did play the original version as well, and as best as I can tell, there are 0 gameplay changes between the two, but as you might be able to notice if you have eyes, DX is in full color, and a damn good full color at that. Don't get it twisted, this isn't a Donkey Kong Land situation where you desperately need color to make the game readable. Having played through both versions for this video, I think Dreamland 2 visually looks great even in its original green scale. The Kirby franchise tending to stick to simpler, large geometry helps with that, of course, but level environments are brilliantly varied, spritework and animation is fantastic and fluid, the game as a whole looks damn nice for the hardware, and in some respects I think I like it even more than Adventure. But if I can make the game more visually interesting for a viewer without sacrificing the integrity of review too much, there's no real reason not to in my mind. I imagine some will also point out that I could have just gone with the Super Game Boy enhancements, which utilize the Super Nintendo to give the game a pretty decent color version and this cute border, but look at how nice Kind looks. Anyway, on to the story. Dreamland's been chillin' for a bit since the last time the Kirby had to kill a horrifying murder demon, and given that it's a day ending in Y, that just can't be anymore. This is where an entity known as Dark Matter comes into play. He longs to create a dark world, and in order to do so, he needs to create 7 dark fountains across the Rainbow Islands of Dreamland. Wait, nope, sorry, that's the wrong game, my bad. In order to create his dark world, he possesses the poor bastard King Dedede and destroys the rainbows that connect the islands. Kirby, probably having slept through everything until he heard beating the shit out of King Dedede was on the table, heads off to save Dreamland once more. But for the first time in one of these games, he's not going it alone. During your journey, you'll find the oft-kidnapped Rick the Hamster, Kind the Sunfish, and Coo the Owl. These guys are... well, they're Kirby's friends. That's nice, right? We'll touch on them more in gameplay in a little bit, but they're largely just sidekicks to Kirby on this adventure, where anytime they're left to their own devices, they just end up getting stuffed in a sack for Kirby to rescue them. They don't have a ton of narrative impact, as you might imagine, but it's a Kirby game. I don't think you were expecting much narrative impact just yet. Rick's got that lovable aura to him. Coo's yellow and purple color palette was always gonna win me over. Anything that looks vaguely like Hyder's gonna do that. And oh man, Kind. I already love a good sunfish, and the artists on this game clearly loved him too. He gets some of the most expressive sprites in the whole game. He's easily my favorite of the 3. But truly, it's still mainly up to Kirby to get a move on and save the world from Dark Matter. This takes us to the first world of the game, Grassland. Dreamland 2 plays largely identically to its 2 predecessors, having you run, jump, float, and fight your way through room after room of adorable little baddies in order to reach the end of the stage. And that's great, because it means I don't have to spend a ton of time re-explaining how a Kirby game works anymore. Good news, guys! Kirby games all kind of play the same. Who'd have thought, right? I think this game does a good job of leaning more into that adventure version of the formula, though, where you actually have to engage with the level design more often instead of being able to skip past large chunks. And that's amazing. Many levels utilize rooms with ceilings and condensed hallways that force you to actually play the game instead of cheesing it. And even the more open levels will bring in more blocks, enemies, or even gimmicks like auto-scrolling or vertical challenges that all do a great job of taking what was weak about the first Dreamland and just fixing it completely. Truly, I don't think there's a level in here I would say I was bored playing. I'd go as far as to say I don't think there's a straight up bad level in this entire game when you're talking about point A to point B platforming. Even the booby level. Yeah, don't worry, I'll do the Dreamland 2-bit. That's like the trivia piece number 1 everyone knows about this game, right? Did you know in Dreamland 2 they had boobs? Dreamland 2 also incorporates the wonderful copy ability mechanic from Adventure, solidifying its permanent presence in the franchise going forward. This works basically identically to last time, giving him access to an extra move that tends to provide a bit of extra range for combat or some additional movement option. This go around there's Burning, Cutter, Ice, Spark, Stone, Needle, and, of all things, Parasol. That's right everyone, you can once again glide slowly. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I know, it's just so exciting. I mean, it also just functions the same as Sword would have, so it's not like I really hate the decision to use it. I'm just amused to think getting these freaks in took priority. By and large, these 7 are basically untouched from their adventure counterparts, except for Stone now allowing you to roll down slopes, but that's a pretty minor change. They're all still perfectly acceptable, fun power-ups for Kirby to use. But funnily enough, I didn't really use much of these during my playthrough. Not because I didn't like using them or because they were hard to get, but because Kind loves shooting light bulbs. Across each Rainbow Island, you'll run into all manner of mini-bosses, and as a reward for clearing them, you'll not only get access to their copy ability, but a sack that generally contains one of your 3 animal buddies. Or maybe this little lovable blob Gooey, but he's just a health item in this game. We'll see it for Dreamland 3, buddy, don't worry. Coming into contact with Rick, Kind, or Coo will cause Kirby to hop aboard that creature, with each one having a distinct playstyle that sets him apart. Coo can take to the air with even more skill than Kirby, letting him fly past strong streams of wind. Kind makes every water section a breeze, since you can now suck up enemies or otherwise swim past them super fast at the cost of being a clumsy oaf on land. And Rick, well, you can't float as Rick, so the only thing he really has over standard Kirby is that he's really fast, but he also gives you access to Beam, so he's kinda awesome actually. This is maybe the more pressing matter when it comes to these 3. By riding them, Kirby's copy abilities will change into other attacks. This isn't always a big shift. Something like Burning Coo just changes the angle you dash at, but others will either buff the existing attack or cause them to function entirely differently. Spark is probably the easiest way to present this. With Rick, you get Beam. Kind gives you a light bulb that you can light up dark passages with, or just use it as a projectile. projectile, and Coup causes you to shoot a lightning bolt onto targets directly below. None of these even sort of resemble Spark in its standard state, and yet all of them manage to feel just as, if not more, worthwhile to use. With the ability to bring any animal buddy into basically any stage, you will be given a ton of opportunities to experiment with this mix and match copy design, and it's a lot of fun. The game also does a good job of not having you go very long without running into each one of them, so it doesn't end up getting monotonous ever. I will admit though, I am slightly mixed on these guys for a perhaps silly reason. Kirby is really kind of on the back seat here. Barring one or two exceptions I can recall, once you start getting animal buddies, there's really not many situations where you're going to be better off not having one. Even in scenarios like having Kind in a stage that's purely on land, his unique copy abilities, and frankly most importantly, an entire extra set of hit points is just too much incentive to give up in a first playthrough of the game. Not the entirely needed, I suppose. Dreamland 2 retains the series' trademark easy as all hell difficulty, but from a mental standpoint, I think most people can understand why on a first playthrough, when you don't know what's going to happen next in a stage, how sacrificing half of your health and oftentimes stronger abilities in order to play as just Kirby isn't exactly appealing. I recognize how this could just be viewed as a nitpick though, and in truth it doesn't even bother me enough to think that the animal buddies are anything besides a good inclusion to the gameplay. They're horrid for the soundtrack though. This is definitely my second biggest qualm with the game. If you have an animal buddy, its theme is going to play instead of the level's intended music, and since I've already discussed how I view these three as being Kirby's fuzzy, feathery, scaly skin grafts, it means that you're not hearing a damn thing besides these three songs for most of the game. Not that these are bad songs, I think they're good enough, and if you're playing the DX hack, you can toggle it to only play the normal tracks, but I think changing anything about the experience of the original game besides the addition of color is kind of bleeding too far into major changes. So it's definitely unfortunate that you just don't get to hear my biggest qualm with the game. This soundtrack is not good. Let me rephrase a little bit. I don't think the arrangements of these songs are the issue, but I don't know, man. A lot of the soundtrack just feels kind of off to me. I'll be real, I'm not really the right guy to go to for insightful music critique. It's certainly not my strong suit and probably never will be. So for me to sit here and think, gee, this instrumentation is pretty bad, feels pretty concerning. Like, I listened to a Dreamland 1 song and then a Dreamland 2 track, and in my eyes, it's practically night and day. Something about the instruments used in the first game were just far and away better. Hirokazu Ando returns from Adventure, working alongside Tadashi Ikegami, who previously worked on Kirby's Pinball Land, and Ikegami's known work for this game is actually great, but as far as I could find online, he's only credited for 4 songs. That means the bulk of the work was Ando, and I mean the songs ripped from Adventure are still good, but they're ripped wholesale. I'm not gonna give him credit for using an old essay here, and his new work just isn't up to snuff with what he did before or after this game, and that's a huge bummer for me, man. There are good tracks. Like I said, I love Ikegami's work on this game, especially Dark Castle. If you have time, go take a listen to that once this is over, but I just can't pretend I liked listening to this music very much overall. We'll see some of these songs again in other Kirby titles, and they'll be much better there, but something just wasn't working here. Speaking of material in other games though, how about these bosses, huh? Wispy Woods, Kracko, Mr. Shine, and Mr. Bright, the gang's all here. Yeah, a lot of the bosses here are returning from Dreamland 1 or Adventure, which does of course mean the Wispy Woods is back and just as handsome as ever, but as far as the rest of the retreads, I don't think any of them are really any better than they were before. They're probably not any worse either, they're still just about as fun, but I mean, they're all just retreads. As far as the new bosses go, because there are a couple of them, they're all pretty simple to handle. You can easily dodge pretty much all of their attacks, get your licks in, and they'll be down soon enough. There's just not much to say about any of them. Well, besides Ice Dragon. Kirby's dragon designs have always been some of my favorite things ever. Like, just look at this dude. Look at it. There ain't been a light on upstairs since the day this thing took its first breath, and I'm killing it. I'm a hero. There isn't what I would consider an outright frustrating or poorly designed boss here, but there's no standouts either. They're all just different flavors of okay. And honestly, I'm not really sure if the Kirby series is ever going to get to a point where I'm really raving about the regular bosses. I mean, it might happen, but it doesn't feel like it's happening anytime soon at this point. Okay, maybe that's that's not entirely true. The final boss, which is, shocker, King DID, it's King DID again, wow, is pretty damn good. But man, I do kind of feel bad for this guy. I mean, he's innocent again, and here he is being possessed and currently knocked out cold, and I'm just gonna thwack him all the same? I'm a real dickhead. But Dark Matter must have been paying attention to how 3D's been getting his shit pushed in, because this is by far the most interesting version of this boss fight across the first 3 games. It starts out the same as Adventures, but over the course of the fight, he'll start having his attacks get explosive properties to make it so you have to be even smarter about when you get your hits in. Or just use Cutter, he gets demolished by that thing. And then, upon beating the best final boss so far in the Kirby franchise, Kirby, Rick, Kine, and Koo leave and go home without solving anything? Unlike the first 2 games, Dreamland 2 has multiple endings. What we just saw is actually the bad ending, where Dark Matter remains inside of DID and nothing is actually fixed. Funnily enough, I do actually really enjoy this walk through the rain that they go on, but that little "the end" means that our job just isn't done. So, how do we get the good ending? Well, you like puzzles? In each world there will be one level that contains a rainbow drop, and by collecting all 7 we unlock the true final boss. To get to him, you first have to find the doorway that takes you to the drop, and then break the wall blocking it off using the correct copy ability. This is basically not a problem for most of them. By and large, they're pretty easy to intuit. You're usually going to be able to get the copy ability you need inside of the stage itself, but whoever decided the World 4 drop solution needs punched in the head, man. In order to get to it, you have to bring Kine to this spot with the burning ability, then drop down to break the ice blocks, but don't try to take the 1-up that's right there, or else you cannot get the drop anymore. Because you need Kine to continue further down to break these blocks here, and if the blocks guarding the 1-up are gone, you have to ditch the fish to get back out of this pit. It's a weirdly frustrating decision to make you restart the entire stage for trying to get a nice bonus. A couple of the later ones can be a little complicated, but I wouldn't say that they are frustrating to this extent. I just don't like this one. It's a little too mean-spirited, I think. Not that big of a deal though, since getting all the rainbow drops really should only take another 20 minutes on top of the base game. Truly, none of these ask that much of you, and can also be trivialized further by just having a guide on hand to tell you what copy ability you need to break the walls. And frankly, I do recommend that because the side quest isn't the fun part here. It's mostly just prep work to the fantastic reward of fighting Dark Matter. Dark Matter is, far and away for me, the most fun part of the game. To fight him, you do have to first refight DID, the poor fuck, but upon knocking him to the dirt once more, the rainbow drops will gather to make the rainbow sword, causing Dark Matter to take to the sky. Real quick, can I talk about how cool this design is? I love how he looks. The wild hair, the visor with one clear imposing eye, the cape, he just looks so slick. In this fight, Dark Matter uses all sorts of charges, sword beams, and dark energy attacks to keep you at bay, forcing you to stay on the move in order to not get demolished. Initially, I was just going to go in swords blazing to swipe at him, but he actually doesn't take that much damage from your slashes. Eventually, I realized you could hit his dark energy attack back at him to deal way more damage, and that made my eyes light up. I loved mixing in strategic counterattacks with just going bonkers on his ass. And you know, this is actually kinda hard. The first time I can really say that with my chest about a Kirby game, and it feels so good. And that's only the first phase. Once you damage him enough, Dark Matter's armor falls away, revealing this big blob that moves a bit more erratically, shooting projectiles that can't be deflected but are easily destroyed. It also has a charge move that's easy to dodge and a lightning attack that locks down a big part of the screen, but ultimately this part is a victory lap. Stay sharp, beat the hell out of that guy with your sword, and watch Dark Matter explode. With the threat eliminated, Kirby falls from the stars, with his friends and frequent victim watching on from below. Kirby regains consciousness, doesn't acknowledge any of them, and floats off. Another demon down, God knows how many more to go. But for now, rest easy, Kirby, as we end Kirby's Dreamland 2. This was a good time, easily better than Dreamland 1, and now that I'm done, I can happily say that I took about 2 hours with this one. Way more of an actual game here. Level design is great, visuals are superb, and the new additions here add a lot to the formula to set it apart from Adventure. That being said, I'm not entirely sure I like this game more than Adventure. I think Dreamland 2's music woes hold it back a fair bit for me, and I feel like Adventure benefited from the NES hardware to make a game that gave you just a bit more variety that the Game Boy just wasn't built to handle. But I absolutely recommend this one, especially with that DX hack. So far, this series hasn't had a true miss, and with 2 adventures on the Super Nintendo on the horizon, I have a feeling my tune isn't changing there anytime soon. Well, hi, god damn it. Well, I'm sure I'll wake up soon enough, right? Just gotta... Hey, what the hell? Why am I being washed back into the sea? Oh, no, that's not it. Am I being waterboarded? Hey, wake up, you lazy lot lizard. Oh, I don't do that anymore. Wait a minute, huh? Oh, what the fuck?